Hey guys, doing Alex here, licensed CPA and Realtor, and I'm over here with Paul. What's up, Paul?
Good. How you doing?
It's been Super Bowl weekend wore off, and I guess we're kind of back into that grind, right?
Yes, yes, we are.
We discussed this earlier. There are reports of how the interest rates have kind of ticked up faster than what some conservative people have thought, and so now we're getting calls from buyers and sellers who maybe want to, transition. Hey, what does this mean for me?
I would say rising interest rates really affect people and how much they can qualify for. And so maybe you can qualify for a little less loan than you thought initially. Rates have gone up almost 1% in a month. It's kind of crazy.
And this is where people are like, oh, so it's a split, right? So for people who are in the market or who have bought that 1%, or even if you are like finance savvy, you understand what that 1% means. For other people, 1% is like, so it's 1%.
Mm-hmm.
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Right. And for me, it's one of those things where let's just do simple math, right? If your rent, let's say, is $1,000, and you have 1%, that's $10 at the end of the year, right? So why does that matter? Because it compounds. So next year you got that $1,010, and now you're taking 1% of that. It's going to keep going up, right? And that's where the problem ends.
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem also is when people qualify, they qualify for a loan amount, and then when the interest rates adjust, well, now you qualify for less, and now you got to adjust your whole, strategy for your home purchasing,
Right. This is where it's good to know like a lender, right? Because from a real estate perspective, they're like, well, I can't really do much for a buyer unless I know what you can afford, right? And if that number changes, well then, I know obviously there'll be some buyers who say, you know what, we're out of market. My recommendation is don't over leverage yourself. However, if it requires you to move maybe a couple blocks over or maybe the next neighborhood, if it makes financial sense, I still think you should buy, right? And that's not because I'm a realtor, it's because I've seen how this increase in market will affect your overall wealth, right? So if someone's let's say a first-time home buyer, and they're like, hey Paul, look, we're trying to buy a house. When should I come talk to you?
They should talk to me when they're starting the process. They supply me with their pay stubs and their W-2s and their bank statements, and then we can put together a scenario of what they can afford. And then you can go to the realtor, provide that information, and then we can work together as a team.
Okay. And so from what I know of the market currently, historically people want to wait till the spring and the summer, right? We're in this weird situation where it actually makes more sense if you're going to buy now, right? Now, there are going to be buyers who are going to be like, I don't know, well, I mean, it feels like a lot of commitment for something I'm not entirely sure. Like, you have to run my credit, right? Like, do I want this hit on my credit if I'm not 100% sure if I can even afford a house in this neighborhood? And so, is there anything, before you make that full dive, is there something where, a buyer could be like, hey, look, let me just see what I might qualify for?
Well, that's what I tend to do with my clients is, I offer them like a way to kind of put together a soft scenario for them where I put together their real numbers for their pay stubs, their W-2s, and their bank statements, but we don't run their credit so that we can, get an idea of what, best case scenario, what they qualify for.
Okay.
And then if it looks good to everyone, then we can pull the credit and then get the hard liabilities.
And just before some people think they're extra clever, right? They're not taking this and they're going to be like suddenly, hey, this is my pre-approval, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's not do that, right? Because I know there are going to be some people who ask, hey, so if you run this soft report, they're going to be like, well, can I take this and go shop with it? No, don't do it. Because it's not, because obviously for this to be a legitimate, say, pre-approval, they would have to run credit.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So if you know that your finances are good, you could probably talk to a lender around the time that you're thinking, hey, we should go buy a house, or maybe we should buy. But if you're not sure, if you think my credit might be shaky, or maybe my income's a little low, would you say a 6 month is good?
I would say as soon as you start planning to purchase a home, because it can be a long process. As you know, when you're taking buyers out, you know, they think that the first house they see that they like, they're gonna put an offer in, they're gonna win. Well, it's a very competitive market. You know, I think you've been telling your viewers, but you know, it never hurts to know what you qualify for, and the sooner you start that process, the more knowledge you get, and you can make more informed decisions. You know,
Absolutely.
and that's the way to go.
So obviously, in this, we're gonna go deal with the assumptions here, because obviously I can't. It's like everything else, right? Like when people ask you certain things, like what do I do? It depends. It depends. So obviously we'll, you know, try to keep this as generic as possible, and we're operating on assumptions here. So please, not financial advice. Just talk to your lender, talk to your, you know, licensed professionals. But in this case, we'll say standard W-2 person, first-time home buyer. What are some like considerations or some common like pitfalls that you're seeing in terms of these scenarios?
Common pitfalls, I would say, for first-time home buyers: large deposits that, you know, they've been saving up cash for a while, and then they're like, oh, I want to buy a house, I'm ready to put an offer, I'm going to deposit $50,000, you know, a large sum of money into the bank, and then when you start submitting for the pre-approval, the bank is going to ask, what is this large deposit, and it needs to be sourced. You know, the bank asks for 2 months bank statements, and anything that is a large deposit, they need to know where it's from and why.
Right. So I found this under my mattress, bro. Like I was changing my sheets one day, and oh snap, I found 50 grand.
God bless.
So I can use that?
No, you can't. You know, you can use it in your other, you know,
Whatever.
endeavors, but not for buying a home.
And so let's keep this clear, right? The assumption here is you didn't do anything shady. You pay your taxes on this money. This is all legitimate, above board money, right? Let's not twist this, right? So assuming this is all legitimate, you know, above board reported income, it's just cash, right? My understanding then is, you know, well, typically let's say it's 2 months bank statements. If I know I have a mountain of cash, legitimate, above board, you know, reported money, please don't be stupid, right? I should start planning ahead, because I don't want to see, you know, and you know, there are still people, right, that are like even my parents' generation where they have $100,000 for whatever reason, legitimate cash, just in case the sky falls. Don't wait the month before to dump this 100 grand into your bank account. Don't do it,
Right.
please.
Like
Please.
even though it is, you know, it's legitimate, you know, income from legitimate business transactions or whatever, the bank needs to see the source of it. So if you cannot explain the source of it, we cannot use it.
And I think that's where I'm gonna file that under planning, right? And please, everything that we've discussed here, right? Everything, like the assumption here, right? For instance, like the cash, like everything else, we're assuming that everything here is above board, everything is reported, everything is legitimate. Okay, so let's cut out the others portion, because that is something where I'm just not touching. Period. Right? It's just I like having my licenses. So
Yes.
let's go with that. Now let's go on the flip side, right? So let's say on one side we had the person who legitimate, like, you know, had a lot of cash, and they thought this was our safety net, and then decide to dump it into your bank account because they need to qualify for a loan. We're saying, but not financial advice, but if you know that your lender is looking for 2 months bank statements, right? It may behoove you to see if it makes more sense to take that influx of cash prior and plan ahead, right? So that then it's just you see money in your bank account and not an actual deposit. I'm not going to ask for a confirmation, but right, that's the thing. Now on your flip side of it, you have the dum-dum who decide, oh look, we got a pre-approval, let's go buy out a car, right? What do you say to that?
No, don't do it. Like, it's, you know, you can be approved and then you can lose that approval very, very quickly if you make a large purchase. You know, until you close, please avoid large purchases. Don't buy a boat, don't buy a car, you know, because you celebrate this new house.
But I want a jet ski, bro.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
do that after. You can do it after you close.
But after what? After closing?
After closing,
contract?
yes.
Okay.
Wait till you close.
And there was something similar, right? Well, on both ends.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's one where they went into contract and decided, hey, let's go drop some cash, bro.
Yeah.
And now they're in a situation where now they're actually going for financing, and they're like, your debt to income doesn't make any sense. And then we have the other side of it where they have a boatload of cash, and now that they're going for financing, they're kind of in the situation of, so you want to tell me how this cash,
Yeah.
right? And now they're they're stuck. And now what that means from my end is now we have buyers who potentially can't close in time.
Yeah, like it's very common. It's a common mistake, and speak to your mortgage professional to kind of help you start the planning process on how to navigate the whole situation.
Well, shoot, how am I supposed to get 20%?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's another common mistake that people do, is that they look at the market and they're just, oh, I gotta save 20%. It might never come because the market keeps moving. The house prices keep going up, and my recommendation is to just contact a mortgage professional to see what you can qualify for now, and also they can help you plan ahead. Maybe you don't qualify now, but maybe in 6 months, a year.
Right.
That's the best way to do it.
And this is going to be, I feel like this is going to be a point that I repeat ad nauseum, right?
Mm-hmm.
If this is your primary residence, all right, and feel free to say I'm wrong, right? Because this is an opinion, not financial advice. If it's your primary residence, I'm at that point of stop trying to figure out what your return on investment. It's not an investment. Your primary home is not an investment. Stop thinking of it as one. Stop treating it like one, right? At best, this is forced savings, right? And when people kind of first hear that, they kind of have like, what do you mean it's not an investment? Me personally, I'm at that point of, if it's your personal home, stop nitpicking little things of like, well, what's the market going to do? Who cares, right? For me, my personal stance is, can you afford it? Do you have cash reserves should something happen? And will you continue to have cash flow to pay for your mortgage, pay for your bills, pay for your utilities? So with that said, it turns into one of those things of, look at the monthly payment. Talk to a lender, figure out what that monthly payment will look like, right? Factor in your interest and taxes and whatever you need to. Does that dollar value make sense?
Yeah, it comes down to like cost benefit,
Right.
because if you don't buy a house, where are you living? Are you living with your grandparents? You're living with your parents. There's a cost to that.
Yep.
Privacy is very
Mhm.
pricey, and if you're paying for rent, compared to the mortgage payment, whereas yes, maybe the mortgage payment is more than what you're paying in rent, but you are getting a little bit of equity every month.
Right.
So there's offsets, and you can look at it in a bigger picture.
Right.
As eventually it doesn't start off as an investment, but down the road it can become an investment as you build more and more equity in the home, and then you can start leveraging that property for future endeavors.
I feel like, this is where I also kind of break into, and I feel like I say this all the time now, like, let's play chess, don't play checkers, right? And so when in this particular scenario, for instance, if your game plan here is that you're going to wait until you can save up 20%, which again, if you could qualify for 10%, 5%, 3.5, depending on your situation, and the numbers make sense to you, stop looking at what is like, oh, this is the perfect scenario. It's right for you. If it's right for you, it's right for you, period. Now, if for my friends who are sitting there, well, I'm going to wait to save up for the 20%, well, is your rent not going up every year? So the money that it keeps increasing is taking away from the money you're saving for the home, right? And so they're like, well, I don't have 20%. Well, go talk to a lender, right? If you can clear for, let's say 5%, I get it. Your parents gonna yell at you because you're paying PMI. Okay, fine, right? But if the numbers make sense, and for me, you could go talk to your lender, make sure if it makes sense. But let's say you house hack, right? Let's say you're gonna live in an area anyway. You're still gonna end up with roommates. All right, well then maybe you should own the house, rent out portion, or have housemates. You don't have to rent out rooms and break the law, but you can have housemates, right? Up until the limit. And now you have roommates. They're still paying rent, and you're still paying your portion, maybe, right? Except now you're not paying a landlord. You are the landlord, right? So you're building equity in this way. This is where some people get lost, right? Because if I have a house, I don't want housemates. You're renting anyway. You still have roommates.
Right.
What are you doing?
Right. I mean, my perspective is that I try to be flexible depending on what the client's needs are. Like if they're more comfortable renting, God bless them,
Right.
But if they are looking to purchase a home, and I'm here to kind of run scenarios to make sure like we exhaust every option for them.
Absolutely. And so I think this is where I got this little tidbit. I mean, it was another podcast, but they're like, look, don't go into a lender's office and saying, this is the product I want, right? And it dawned me, because as I talk to you more and more, he's like, well, did you think about doing this? And so this is for anyone who's considering buying a house. Don't be like, this is the product, the loan product I want. Why don't you just tell them, hey, look, this is what I have. This is what I'm looking for. Like this is the house. This is what I plan to do with the house. Whatever. What products do you have available? Right? Would that make a little more sense?
Yeah. You know, go into the meeting being open to different ideas and, you know, different products, and, you know, it should be a collaborative effort. You know, like the lender can offer you a product and kind of steer you towards a certain product that they think is best and fits you. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. You know, you can say, maybe I'm not comfortable putting that much down payment. I want to save some in reserves. And, you know, that's our goal, is to find a middle ground to make sure it works.
Of course. And, you know, to add to that, I believe in building a team, right? And the more wealthy people that I see, they have, they're like, oh, my team. And then you find out some of their team members aren't employees. They're not like, you know, they don't have some massive corporation. And sometimes it's like, look, I have a lender, I have a realtor, I have a CPA, I have a tax attorney. They're still my team. They just don't work under my company umbrella, but they're my team. You know why? Because I talk to them and I could spitball with them. And for instance, let's say, homeowner goes, I'm gonna go 20% down, go conventional, right? And then they're stressing out because they wanted to go do some work at the house. Meanwhile, maybe there was a product, if they spoke to you about it, hey, I want to buy a house, it's probably be a fixer-upper, X, Y, and Z. Then you could actually be like, oh, by the way, you might qualify for, let's say, we don't know his scenario, but let's say he's like, you know what, all things considered, maybe 10% down, and we figure out some kind of options for where we build the construction, the rehab into it, right? Maybe. But unless you have that dialogue, right? My thing is you're potentially making yourself work harder for something that you could just ask a question.
Exactly.
Right. Is there anything else in terms of like common errors or like facepalm moments that you're seeing?
Facepalm, you know, like I think we touched on it earlier. It's just there's when you start the process, you know, you don't want to get too far along before you speak to a mortgage professional to know what you qualify for. You know, you don't want to make an offer on the house, go ask for pre-approval, and then find out you can't actually afford that house because the down payment isn't counted, and then now you're scrambling to figure out, you know, financing. Speak to a mortgage professional early on so that you can start the planning process.
Absolutely. And, you know, and there are going to be other considerations because with the Great Migration, you know, for instance, there are things with people didn't account for the property tax increase, which that is a sticky bun that we're not getting into that today, but, you know, it is a consideration. So this goes in line with, talk to your lender in terms of what your safety range is, right? But also in the back of your head, because you are still the captain of your ship, keep an eye on what your finances are and see what leeway you have, right? Because, for instance, if I know, obviously you can't get a guarantee in terms of what the property taxes will be, right? But I might be able to ballpark it, right? As you look through different Zillow and whatever, you see what the property taxes are, right? That's not a guarantee. It's not going to be 100%, but it's a ballpark. And so for me, that's one consideration. There are other things, right? But at the end of the day, what my point is talk to licensed professionals. Talk to a lender. Don't guess and just assume, because I've seen we're at a point where now inventory is still at a record low, and people are now going back to this nonsense of maybe the market will crash, right? And maybe it will, maybe it won't. But as far as I can tell, this year it's not going to happen. And in the time, they could have just had a 30-minute conversation with you.
Yeah.
Right. 30 minutes.
Yeah. There's no cost to it,
right.
And you know it's all about collaboration and communication.
So I mean, look, I would say it's almost as easy as clicking the Webull link below for free stocks, but if it doesn't cost you anything, right, and you only have potential upside, my thing is the minute you even consider, like it's like a blip in your brain, go talk to a lender. Like really, that is the first step, because if your finances aren't up to speed, at least you could figure out your game plan on steps forward, right? Like obviously, I imagine you're not going to give full-on financial like planning advice, but you know, if it's things of like my credit score is low, and you notice that the debt to income is high, is it something? Can you actually just be like, look, your debt has to come down?
It could be your debt has to come down. Is there a co-borrower situation that we can find? And there's different solutions.
I like it. And actually, I totally forgot about that too. Again, this is why you have professionals, right? And it's going to be. I think there are going to be a lot more people who have co-signers going forward, only because their parents are starting to retire, and unfortunately, there are a lot of millennials who don't have the 800 credit score and like $500,000 sitting in a bank, or $500,000 salaries, right? Let's just keep it real. And in those cases, I think these are things that a lot of people forget, right? Or it's just an ego thing of like, I have to have this myself. No, talk to your lender, figure out your options, right? And there are hard discussions, I'm sure. I guess, are there particular like red flag issues where you're just like, I'm not touching that at all?
Red flag discussions?
Yeah, certain things that might seem innocuous. I imagine like you've had people come up to you and be like, hey dude, like, so can I get a loan? And you're like, no.
Yeah, more times than not, like a lot of people. I mean, and it's nothing to be ashamed of either. It's that's actually what I want, is to people to know what they qualify for. And if it turns out that they don't qualify yet, my goal is to give them the steps.
So I mean, when you talk in terms of you want to help them progress, right? Yeah. For me, and you're absolutely right. Just because you didn't qualify for that $50 million loan with like 2% doesn't mean any. Like, I think a lot of people put like their social value on that, and for me, I think you're right? This is why you talk to a lender, because for me personally, you could sit there and be like, oh, all defeated. I'm like, oh crap, I can't afford a house. Or you could say, okay, well, with this said, what can I do to improve my situation then? Like, how can I make these numbers more in my favor, right? And now you have a game plan. Now you have something to strive for. Now you have, actually a place like in your future where, okay, these are the steps I need to take.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's no shame in it, because everyone that has purchased a home has gone through the same steps that you're going through right now. Like they didn't know what they qualified for. They went out and found somebody that had knowledge, and then they got the information. And once you go through it, it makes it a lot easier.
For anyone out there who might want to go talk to Mr. Chung over here, how can they come out and reach you?
Oh, please contact me at the links below in the video.
Mm-hmm. And with that said, I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions regarding lending, come talk to Paul. Real estate, come talk to me. Otherwise, I catch you guys on the next one.
See ya.